Alright, so now this next video we're going to go more specifically into the registration form and how to modify it with conditional logic. It's going to get fairly technical. The only things that we have to kind of worry about is just making sure that everything matches. And let me show you what that kind of looks like right now. So what I did was I actually made a backup of the Coconut Grove Elementary registration. I kind of worked on this one a little bit before I actually did it, so I actually put a note as to what is different. So I put the days and names of the different after-school programs were the only changes in this version from the original. So it still has, for example, so I say days, and then I believe it still has some conditional logic related to the Wednesday, but not too important. So let's just go back and let me just show you the other contact form, the latest one. So in this particular case, the first section we're going to see is actually what's in the form. We have how does the mail work. So you'll see, like, for example, what's the subject line when you receive it, who is it actually coming from. This is actually very important in the setup. Sometimes when there's an update to WordPress, these kind of get a little bit out of whack, and so that's where the problems come from when you don't receive those emails. Now it's working fine. The very important thing that has to do with this is that all the emails have to come from something that says @ntennismiami.com. In fact, WordPress @ntennismiami.com, from what I recall, is not a real email address, but it's a Google group, which basically means that when somebody does send an email to this, it's going to be forwarded to your info@ntennismiami.com, and I believe even your info@ntennis actually forwards to tennisneighborhood@gmail.com, just so you make sure that you have everything. So this is just the email that goes to you guys, but then we're also using a mail to version, which actually shows the email that is received by the parents once they fill that out. So notice that we have these things that are kind of in brackets right now. So these items that are in brackets are basically these fields that I have created that correspond with what's being submitted or not. So let's actually take a look at the form so you can get a better idea of what's going on. So with making a new field or adding something else that you want to know about this particular individual, the different types of form buttons or sort of fields are actually up here. So for example, if you wanted to have something that says, like, okay, what's your website? What you'll do is you'll actually copy, at least what I think you guys should do is you'll go ahead and you'll copy that first one and you'll change this to, for example, website. And so now that that's done, what this is going to show is actually in the front end, you're going to see something. Here, actually, let's just show you. So let's go to ntennismiami.com, and we're going to go over to Coconut Grove Elementary. Okay, so if I go all the way to the bottom, all of a sudden we have this text that's here. But we also want the field to actually show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this button here, URL. And so it's going to open up this dialog box. One of the things that I like to do, you can make it a required field or not, but what I like to do is make sure that I name it. And so in this case, I'm going to do website field. I like to put dashes. You can't use spaces, so you have to put dashes. You can put a default value for the person, or you can put a placeholder. So you can use this text as a placeholder. So for example, I might put www.ntennismiami.com, or even put e.g, like that. And so this is done. So now we have this placeholder that's being put in there. So now I click on insert tag, and so now I see I kind of have the same setup except for this one little closing p tag. So I got to put that back there in order for it to be formatted correctly, and I'm just going to press enter just so I can see some space between that. But whether or not you put enter, it actually doesn't make a difference, since this is actually HTML coding. We're going back to the MySpace days right now, actually putting in regular HTML. Alright, so now that we have this here, don't worry about the spacing that's here. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't do anything. You can't press tab because it's just going to go to the next field, which happens to be, I believe, a save button. Right. So now that I've done that, I've made sure that these are basically the same, so it should have the same amount of space. So I'm going to click on save, I'm going to go over here and let's take a look, see if I have that website field. Yep, I have that website field and I have the URL in there, so, or the placeholder text. Now mind you, if somebody doesn't put a URL, let's see what happens. The N10S Miami. I'm just going to put it like that. Well, it's probably still not going to work because there's other things that are required. So notice it says validation errors occurred. Please confirm the fields and submit it again. So in this particular case, it says please fill in the required fields. So you know there are a few things that are required. And so yeah, and notice how it actually changed it to HTTP. But anyway, we don't really need this, right? So that's just a basic thing of how to add a simple field there. You'll notice that this actually shows what type of field it is. So it's a text field here. The star denotes whether or not it's a required field next to it. And then this is going to be the name of the field. So let's give another example. Let's say, for example, I want a, let's say checkboxes. Checkboxes, drop-down menus, radio buttons, they all kind of work the same way, except drop-down menu, you can only choose one. And the same thing with radio buttons, they just appear different. The checkboxes, you could choose several. So let's say, for example, let's do checkboxes. So again, I have the same dialog box, and maybe I want to put in, I don't know, let's put in grade level just for fun. I could put first grade. Notice how it says one option per line. So I'm going to put, let's actually make sure we do capitalizations. Second grade, and let's put third grade. So I can put a label first, a checkbox last. So in other words, the label would be to the left and the checkbox would be to the right. But I don't really want that. It's just kind of weird. And then, another option here, I can say I can make checkboxes exclusive, which means that I can only choose one. And then also it says wrap each item with label element. So what that means is if this label is way too long, then it's actually going to put it right below that as well. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to make this a required one. Let's change the name to grade level like that, so it's easier for me to put in the form later, and you'll see why. So here we have it. We have the required field. It's a checkbox. It's named grade level, and it's saying use label element, and then these are the values within. So notice that the values are each separated with a space in between. It's very important. And they also have the values in quotation marks. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there. And let's go ahead and do this copy paste deal. And let's put grade level. Now remember, this is not visible to a user in the front end. So there's no need to worry about it. What is viewable are these quotation marks. What are the values? So anyway, let's go ahead and let's take a look right after I put this in there, right? So don't worry if it goes into the next line. In this particular case, it's HTML. So when you can press enter a million times, it's not going to show. So the way to actually get spacing between things is either using these P tags and making sure that you close them, or using these BR tags. These BR tags are basically the ones that are going to create the space. So anyway, so let's save it and let's take a look at the front. Okay, so website should be disappearing in a second. Okay, see, there we have it. We have grade level, and it looks like we got some like nasty spacing here. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some BRs. Right? Let's just make sure that basically it looks the same. So I'm going to save it, and let's try this here as well. Let's do another BR, and let's see what that looks like. Oh, you know what, actually? It's line height that I need. Okay, so I know, yeah, sorry. So actually what I need there is to actually copy another piece of code that's going to be within this form. Now notice that this is very similar to this. Now the piece of code that I'm missing is what's called a style tag. So if we look down here, we see the style tag, padding bottom 20 pixels, and it's closed off like this. So what you would do is you would go ahead and you would copy that. So you can even copy this whole thing. So to make it even easier, so let's go ahead and copy that. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. And the text that appears is this one here between the p tags, lesson times. So that's what shows up in the front end. And actually, since I see that it's uncapitalized, let me go ahead and fix that right now. Okay, that can be uncapitalized. Here we go, this one. So now we have that uniform. All right, so I'm going to just put grade level in here. I have my padding 20 pixels. Let me see if it looks the same. Okay, yep, that looks the same. We have our BR tag over there. Notice how there's two different ones, but they're interchangeable. You can use them both. Or if you find that one doesn't work, try this one. It should work. That was a change in HTML coding. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Save. And I'm going to refresh. Alright, cool. So I have the spacing here, don't have the spacing at the end. So that would be because we don't have this BR tag. So let's go ahead and let's add that BR tag. And I'm going to do it right there. I could probably do it before, but let's try it after. And I click on refresh. And we see we have the correct spacing. It's pretty much the same exact spacing, the 20 pixels from here to here and from here to here. So that's how you kind of add just new form data or create a new form, or at least the form field. So we'll end the video here because it's already kind of long. And the next one we'll go over the mail section, and we'll go into the conditional fields after that. Thanks for watching.